your relationship with others and your environment is dependent on your relationship with yourself. But if you connect with those others, because that's what life's really about, it's your loved ones, your future generations that you want to be there for, like those make exercise so much easier. Like I find it personally inspiring when I see like an old person that's taking care of themselves, and they don't have to. I'm not talking about like some bodybuilder looking people.
Right.
I mean someone that like it can enjoy gardening, can enjoy picking up their grandkids at band practice or whatever when their kid needs them, and it's something that you could just flow through life and do because you want to do it. When you connect with those things, when you think of you want to be able to play with your grandkid or even better, your great grandkid, maybe like whatever that why is. And I'm not trying to impose my why on y'all. Whatever the downstream thing is, just connecting with it, like thinking about it, maybe even visualizing what that would look like. What do you physically have to probably look like to be able to do that? You know, and then that just makes it easier. So taking the time to connect with your why would be one. Do you want me to go through all three or do you want to take one and we'll go back and forth?
Yeah, I'll take one. But no, you mentioned that there might be some differences. It's funny because that's the first one on my list too,
Oh,
is to find out your why.
maybe.
Because I mean, it's so important for the reasons that you mentioned, but also too, like people don't think about if you what happens when you reach the goal. So like let's say your why is I want to lose 10 pounds for a wedding. Okay. Well, you've lost the 10 pounds for the wedding. Now what? And if your why isn't like this overarching theme of like you mentioned, maybe you want to be strong and for your family into your elderly years, or maybe there's a special activity that you really enjoy, like say pickleball or something. And so you're just trying to stay moving for that. If your why is just some, short-term goal, then oftentimes they'll reach the goal and then they'll quit. And then thus begins the entire cycle of, stopping and starting, stopping and starting. Same thing as like yo-yo dieting and all that stuff. So I fully agree with that. I think that's extremely important. One thing that you touched on is movement competency. So the pyramid from Gray Cook. And yeah, man, I definitely still hold a lot of the same philosophies that we had at CoreWorks. I think those are like underlying, it's the foundation, just like the pyramid. And then I kind of find more utility with placing more of a focus on building muscle, getting a little bit stronger. Like those things kind of matter to me a little bit more. For example, like you mentioned the asymmetry thing, doing like a single leg deadlift. And of course, there's going to be an asymmetry there. You're not going to hit symmetry. And so you can kind of go into this rabbit hole of working too long on that, where that time could be better spent just picking up something heavy, just getting a little bit stronger. Like, sure, work on that but don't spend too much time on it. And I've definitely fallen into that trap with a lot of things where it's like, I'll spend 30 minutes working on something and, that's time that I could have just picked up the weight, put a weight in your hands and do a single leg deadlift. Do you know what I mean? So I think that's good. I think, one thing, so my actual point is to do what you like to do. Find something that you like to do. So adherence is probably the most important thing for people to have any sort of longevity with health and fitness. You have to find something that you enjoy. Now, that's not to say you don't still work out, but if you can find an activity like, say, dancing, if you really like to dance, if there's like a local Zumba class that you really like to go to, and that motivates you to actually get off your butt and get to the class and move your body, fantastic. That's amazing. You really like pickleball? Amazing. Go play pickleball. That being said, use that. This goes back to the why point. If you can find an activity that you really like, that can start to become your why. So if you really like pickleball, well, I would hope that in your spare time, at least you're exposing yourself to some lateral movement. So like pickleball is blowing up right now and it's no slouch of an activity. Like it's very fast movements, left to right. Most people go from a sedentary life. They hear about pickleball because their friend told them and they're like, hey, I'll go with you next week. So they go from absolutely nothing to pickleball, and then they blow their knee out, or they tear their Achilles, or something weird happens. So if you can find an activity that you really enjoy and then apply the framework that Les was talking about, where you have that pyramid base of movement competency, and it doesn't have to be as granular as him and I are talking about right now, but you could view strength training as sort of the base for you being able to play pickleball or you being able to play Zumba. So it's like, go to a Zumba class twice a week, do a little bit of strength work twice a week. And I think that, to me, that motivates me, because what I'm thinking about I want to have a large library of ways of expressing my body. And the more things I practice, the more weights I pick up, the more running I do, the more just random activities that I do, I'm constantly exposing myself, so that if I have a friend that asks me, hey, do you want to go do this thing with me? I'm like, sure. And I don't think about it. I'll give you an example. Have you heard of F3? There's like a men's group. So they're all around the country. And I found one, it's right down the street from me. They meet at the local park. Like, it's like a mile away. I could run there. And, it's at any given moment, there could be 20 guys that are meeting up, and it's just men's group they care about fitness, and they just do workouts together first thing in the morning, Saturday mornings. And so I went, and, there was running and there was core work, and like we were running around this school track and we were doing all these different exercises and stuff. I didn't have to worry, am I about to get myself into something that's going to mess me up? Because I have the confidence of that foundational layer of that movement competency that Les was talking about. I know that there's probably not going to be very many things here that are outside of my foundation. And so that was a really great experience. I had a blast with those guys. Everyone's working hard. It was like age range. There was a 14-year-old kid there, and there was a 70-year-old man there. And it was really great. Yeah, I had a lot of fun. And so that's kind of like the big thing for me to try, just on the adherence part, because I think so many people start and they stop, and it's because they get, like running, for example. How many people do you know that started running and they're like, I hate running? And it's like, well, tell me about your first experience. And they're like, I ran this fast, I got out of breath, I felt really bad, and then I stopped, right? And that happens all the time. And I think that happens in exercise too, not just running, but like strength training and all that stuff, where, people watch a YouTube video and they just dive right in. They don't really think twice about it, and then they stop. And it's like, if you can find something that you really enjoy, that's moving your body, that's getting you winded, making your heart beat, getting a little bit of a sweat, and you enjoy that, and then use that as your framework as, I am aimed at this thing now, and I'm going to strength train to push towards that thing. I think that can be a powerful motivator to keep people in the game for a long time.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, just to elaborate a little bit more too. You mentioned, people, if they have like a short-term goal and they reach it, it's like, now what? But also, like, if you don't reach it, you could create this sensation that this like temporary sense of failure that was totally unnecessary. Like, you're not a failure because you didn't reach it. It's not like a true thing that now you are a failure because you missed. So it's like, it's unproductive. But so, and you go say that with anything. Like, anytime the goal is useful, but the attachment to the goal is not useful. So if you're focused heavily on reaching the outcome, you're setting yourself up to be disappointed for a number of reasons, create new suffering between your left and right ear that didn't need to be there, create injuries too. I mean, for instance, let's say you did a dozen pull-ups when you were in college, and then you're back in the gym and you're like, 40 years old, and you're like, well, I could do one pull-up, but I used to be able to do a dozen, so I want to get back into it, so I'm going to work at it. And then you just start grilling away on pull-ups, trying to get back to the old college self, which is an illusion because now you're 40. And if you're attached to that idea of hitting 12, you're less likely to be a good listener. So like, let's say you're on rep 6 and you feel this little twinge in your shoulder. You're less likely to pay attention to that because you want the goal. You're attached to that outcome. So you fight through another couple reps, both which now increase the damage you've just created. And then 2 days later, you're back in there and you're like, I'm pretty sure it's fine now. I'm just going to go back at it.
Oh, man.
And then, but so we all see, and then eventually you're not doing any pull-ups because you're in a physical therapist's office or your orthopedic surgeon's office. It's like, and you got rehab, and it's like all because you had an attachment. Whereas if you thought of it more long-term and more as a process to embrace, it could be like, well, I know I want to be stronger so that I could, be strong in my older years and take care of myself. And along the way, I'm going to practice pull-ups as a strength exercise. And then you could say, well, how should I practice pull-ups in a way that nourishes my body and cultivates strength so that one day I know that my body is there for me when I need it? And then you're more likely on that fifth rep to be like, I'm not sure I could do another 6-1. I'll give it 5 minutes and try again. Or like, and you don't make a dumb decision. And that, it's like the more you pay attention to what's really important to you, because the 12 reps isn't really that important. Like nobody's life changes off of that. Yeah. But if you could be there for a loved one when you're old and not have a busted up shoulder, and you could like help them with something that requires a shoulder, like that's meaningful. Yeah, but it's hard to do. And, no matter how much you practice that, you could you could still get off course, and that's fine. Like but what you practice grows stronger. So if you practice paying attention to what your goals are and what's driving you, you'll get better at making good decisions based on those. You'll get better at that whole process.